everybody to the last workshop of the Rockstar Summit. It's with Marusha Murphy. She is an amazing community builder. I am part of her tribe. We met each other through Susie Carter. And what Marusha specializes in is helping build online community around your business, around your message, so you can extend your reach and attract more affluence and more clients. So I'm going to just turn it over to you, Marusha, because you are amazing. You have so much to share, and here we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for being here. This is so much fun. I love doing take twos because there's always stuff that after I do a talk, I'm like, oh, I wanted to tell them that, and oh, I wanted to tell them that, and dang it, we didn't get to talk about that. So I'm really excited about whatever's going to show up. Like, let's just let magic fly. And Jennifer, you know, I think one of the things I really loved about last week that I'd love to bring back is the fact that this became what the magic, part of the magic was really hearing and getting to know what people were doing and what people were up to in their worlds, and making sure that what we're talking about really feels aligned with what you're doing, right? Because the truth is, and what I believe is that right now in this day and age, we're in a place of renaissance, like full out renaissance when it comes to community, you know?
Oh.
And that's like right now, because of COVID, we had this craziness happen. Obviously, we were all in our own homes, huddled into our own spaces. But what also happened was us realizing the power of connection, the power of needing each other, the power of wanting to be in relationship with one another. And things that we took for granted, like traveling to see one another or traveling just for fun, to meet people of other cultures, and to be in space and time in the same place and feel each other's energy. We took those things for granted. Who would have ever thought that's what we would be doing, right? So what I'd love to do today is to really just hear for a minute where we're at with that conversation in our own businesses, in our own lives, and then really just have like a really rich conversation around what community might look like for us, and then how do we bring that into the business space, if that works for you.
Perfect.
Love it. In fact, I remembered Karen, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to talk about it, but Karen sent an email like, ooh, I've got this situation going on in Maui. Karen, do you like sharing that? That would be kind of cool to start off with, if that's okay.
No, that's a different one. So I would let her proceed with her stuff, but she and I are going to schedule a call to chat about that one.
Okay, gotcha.
Great.
All right. Well, then I'll just start off with Rockstar Marketing, since three of us are part of Rockstar Marketing Squad. So, oof. So 11 years into building this wonderful business, and we are the top content marketing agency serving the auto repair industry. So there are several, we've evolved, and gosh, there's so much coming to mind. There's so many layers of this onion. One is we have these wonderful, wonderful clients, and we communicate with them regularly, especially when we have monthly blogs for them or what have you. But I think one of my failures has been updating everybody on all the new stuff that we're doing. And I'm promoting stuff on social media all the time, but I don't know if the clients are actually seeing it. So for example, video marketing is sizzling hot, like sizzling hot. And we're doing a lot of that for our clients, and that is something that is growing. And today we did a presentation just before this call, like saying, hey, this is what we're doing. And it was like, oh, and then I'm thinking, how many other people did not know about that? Like, I'm doing it and promoting it online, but how does my particular audience, who are pretty busy and they may not be on my pages, they may not be stalking me like I stalk them, how do they do I need to rely on the email nurture drip campaigns and the emails and just phone calls, or like how do you blend it all together to make sure that everybody's on the same channel? Similarly, Renee and I own the West Coast Swing Dance Company. We have been in hiatus all of COVID. Obviously, nobody's dancing. Dancing is starting to come back, and to be quite honest, we're not really excited about coming back as teachers. We're so busy with rockstar marketing. Dancing was always the hobby that paid for itself and it fed our souls. Rockstar marketing actually feeds us and we're really busy. So for a dollar's amount, we're like, rockstar marketing's getting our attention. But there will be a point. There will be a point where we need to communicate with our community. And we've been steadily communicating with our community. Again, not everybody's online. They need to be mail. They're older, so not everybody is stalking us. But you know, we need to stay in touch with the community and let them know if we are coming back. How do we do that? We typically focus on emails because that is our demographic. But there is something that I've seen in Facebook constantly, and maybe you can address this. There are lots and lots and lots of West Coast swing dance communities and instructors that are putting things in Facebook events, Facebook groups, etc. And I don't see them all. Like somebody will say, "Oh, have you seen Michelle's class?" Nope, I know nothing about it. It's not because I'm not following her. It's just that like it's so scattered. It's not centralized on Facebook. So maybe you can address those kind of gotchas because I know that everybody in our community heavily uses Facebook, but unless you're part of that group or unless you're active, it doesn't even show up on your radar. So, and then the third thing, I'll leave this one up to Renee. Renee is an artist who is building his community. So Renee, do you want to share what it is that you've been doing?
You know, for me, it's always making more art because my medium is visual, right? So I just always am focusing on trying to come up with ideas, execute, and promote, or at least post to be consistent. So that's where I'm at right now, to be honest, is like kind of figuring out what I want to do with my art. Because I can paint, I can draw, I can write to a certain degree, at least for comic books. I don't do prose really well, but it's an issue of being able to do a couple of things, but then you know, there's a saying a guy I used to work with. He's a jack of all trades, but he's a master of none of them. And if I were to just drill down and say I'm just gonna draw X, and I'm just, you know, instead of, and then I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this and do this, because that's a conundrum. Is like today, I've heard like, you know, you are a X and a media company. You know, you're an auto repair shop and a publisher. You're a marketer and a publisher. You're an artist and a publisher. You're a writer and a publisher. Because of social media, like you can do all those things. But there is like a part where you kind of like have to balance the two. And if I deep dive into my art, truthfully, I would not want to come up maybe once or twice a month. I know I'd get a ton of artwork done, but because of the you know, draw, post, video, edit, draw, post, video, edit, draw, post, video. It's like, and then that's when you start looking at, you know, okay, outsourcing, you know, but my budget won't allow for that. So for right now, I am the jack of all trades.
Awesome. Thanks. And
Yeah.
you know, I love these questions that I'm seeing a lot of things like that that are sparking for me as you both have shared already. So I want to make sure we address those for sure. Thank you so much, Jennifer and Renee.
Yeah.
Who else would like to share questions or things you're thinking about when it comes to community and building community online?
Sure. So I have one that might be good for you. I don't have an online community. I have a great LinkedIn connection and those kind of things. And I just opened a Facebook page for my business, primarily because I'm on another Facebook page, which happens to be Women in Product. And it is screaming. I mean, it is so, I mean, there are so many people on there and they're mentoring each other and they're tossing ideas back and forth. And I have never seen such a lively community as this particular one. And so I had kind of written off Facebook because I'm a B2B business, right? In my business, not a B2C, so it's different. But I watched that community and I said, you know, there is certainly something there. People are coming for information. I am amazed at what people are coughing up, you know, in terms of, I've got this issue with my boss. I'm trying to figure out this. Does anybody know a software that will do this, right? And it is just constant chatter, right? And I'm looking at my Facebook page with its 42 followers. Yeah, maybe 42 followers that I just opened last year because I said, okay, but it's, obviously it's not taken off. It's not a community at this point, it's a page. And my business is about getting men and women to work better together in business, right? How do I go from my page to something that might look more like that vibrant community? And how do I personally deal with, in these communities, you no longer control what happens. It just goes, right? And how do I deal with that? You're going to open up a community where people can have these free discussions, but you're not necessarily driving the show. So there's I don't know if you call it a control issue, or maybe you feel like an out of control issue, right? Because things can spiral in communities, right? I'm in another community and, sometimes it's a bunch of authors and we go off the rails and, as one of the community managers, I have to go, we're not, that's not what this is for. You may take that offline, right, with your friends and do that, but not on our community, right? So I struggle with, you might create something you can no longer control.
Yeah.
And maybe that's good, right? So, but I could use some help with sifting through that too.
Great, great. Well, guys, I'm super excited. Let's go into it because this is really one of my favorite topics to talk about because the truth is that a lot of times we do exactly like that, Karen. We have this vision. We're like, we are going to create a community. We think it's going to be this amazing thing, and one of two things happens: either it's just there and it's dead, and we're like, what just happened? Like this is not. It's like planting for many of us, right? Like you get excited about the planting process, and then nothing is happening, or the plant like tries its a little bit, and then you're not paying attention to it, and it falls, right? So like that feels so frustrating. And how many of us have, I know this is the story I've told myself, I'm a total brown thumb, like what the heck, I can't grow this thing. So, and we all get like those air plants and stuff because of because we want something natural in this house, in our houses, right? And that's the only thing that survives. So here's what I want us to stop for a minute and recognize that the truth is, when we're developing out our communities, we have to really discern a few things. The first and foremost thing is to really get clear on what a community actually is versus what an audience is. And so that's the number one thing we're going to talk about today. We're going to then dive into our vision for a community. What does it look like to develop out a community? And then we're going to go from there and really begin to look at how do we really keep it alive and vibrant based on the vision that we have. And I think, and I wonder if that will help answer a lot of our questions. If there's more questions that pop in or things that you feel were unanswered, we'll make sure we'll have time for that as well today, right? Because I really want us first to just have this powerful part of the conversation, which to me, truthfully, oftentimes is the reason that communities fail from the get-go, okay? And here's number one. The number one reason communities primarily fail is because we don't actually know, and we don't have a definition for what a community actually is. So let's define that. A community, well, before we define a community, let's define what an audience is, because it's really an audience versus a community, and we get these things mixed up a lot. So what is an audience? An audience on social, like through the social sphere, is our front-facing opportunities to create connection with our ideal paying clients, okay? How do we get to those audiences? Number one, we get to those audiences through different opportunities like this one. Right now, I'm speaking to you. It's a one-directional conversation. Typically, I mean, you gave me some questions, right? But really, you're coming here to hear an expert, right? And that expert could be you speaking to any type of audience. So speaking, podcasting, YouTube, being on a Facebook Live, doing Instagram, those are all front-facing, one-directional conversations to a group of people that would hopefully be your ideal paying client or customer, okay? So when we think of it that way, we just think of us as like the beam of light speaking out the truth from each of us, right? And that could show up, Renee, in your case, through your art, right? It's that that's your beam of light going out into the world, okay? So when we know that that's an audience, then we can better define then what a community is. And what a community is really is the way in which I envision community. It's like a container, right? It's as if we were going into an event, whether it's a live event, a virtual event, or we're going into a space where we're consistently connecting. And the conversation now becomes, instead of a one-directional conversation where it's at this point Marusha having a conversation with you, it's you, let's say Karen and I, we're having a conversation. Jennifer's like, hey, what's going on over there? Now it's a three-way conversation. Then, Christopher goes and is like, oh, I want to add something to that. That's really, really interesting. And then Renee's like, no, but you guys have it all wrong. Let me tell you how I see it, right? And so that becomes now the power of community. And I want us to think for a minute about those places in our lives that have really helped us recognize that the energy of community, right? What are some of those things? Feel free to put in the chat right now what those things are. What are those what happens when you're in a community that's buzzing for you, that feels so yes to you, and you've got that not one directional, like, hey, I'm the expert and I'm going to tell you the things. What does it feel like? What does the energy feel like when you're in those spaces?
The community gets me.
The
right?
community gets you. Yeah.
We are in sync with at least some subset of goals, and that's what the community is focusing on. And for me, the best are the learning communities where it's okay to ask dumb questions and go, I don't understand how to do this. And other people step right up and say, here, try this, right? Renee says, oh, try this comic book, Karen. That's what you really need. That's probably that's probably true.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say, you said something that's really, really powerful, Karen. You said the community gets me. Right? The community gets me. When we think of those communities that we're so like, we can let our hair down, we can let our bellies hang out, like we can just be. There's no pretense. It feels good, right?
You can be
It feels
real.
really good. Feels so good to be real and to be seen and be accepted for being real, right? I see here in the chat also, Christopher, you say you're engaged, you're exchanging ideas. Jennifer, it's supportive and it's interactive. Renee says getting feedback on my art, right? Like those are things that happen because you have now that container around an interest or around a topic of interest to you. And when you add those elements, what I call the sacred four, I'd love for you guys to write these down. These are the sacred four elements. I believe that when you have these in any community, helps people feel like they can be a part of the community. And it's that feeling seen energy, right? So this is what it is. It's number one, it's helping people feel seen, right? So doing things simple things that you can do to help people feel seen. There's a lot more. You can go into a lot of depth and there's many degrees of this. Simple thing is knowing people by name. That's why the show Cheers was so popular, right? Like everybody knows your name. We want to be known by our name, right? And so helping people feel seen, knowing that they're welcomed when they come into that space, saying, oh my gosh, Jennifer, I'm so freaking happy you're here right now. It feels good. It feels good. So again, think about as I'm saying these sacred four, imagine again you being the person joining a community. What would this feel like if these were the elements of the community that you felt when you came in? Okay. The next thing would be to feel safe, right? This is the element of being able to let your hair down, let your belly hang out, be able to cry, laugh, just be in that space. Be your goofy. I always say, we should all be able to let our freak flag can I speak though? Freak flag fly, freak flag fly. Yeah, we should all be able to do that. And it's true, right? Like, why not? We're in a world where diversity is, I would love to be in even more of a world where diversity is much more accepted. And so the communities that you get to be a part of are the ones that you can let yourself be you and fully authentic to you. So that's the second one, is to create a sense of safety. And so how we do that in our communities is to do that. Just let people be themselves. If there's a difference of opinion, how, really learning the skills to be able to invite a difference of opinion. Obviously, also with some boundaries, there's no hate, right? There's no bullying, there's no trolling things, and there's no spamming in our communities, but a community that is really helping, what I actually learned this term yesterday, co-rise together. Like it's a coordinated rising of each other. And I was like, oh, yes, that is the word I'm going to be using forever. We're co-rising. How do we do that? How do we bring that sense of safety into our communities? The third sacred tenet of building communities is to help people feel heard, to help people feel heard. So what does that look like in a community? Sometimes it's, hey, I need to give you some feedback. This didn't work. And how do you as the leader then accept that feedback or receive that feedback, right? Or, I have an idea, as a community member, someone gives an idea. How do you as a leader and your team, how do people receive that? Are there ways that they can take that in and know that maybe you'll take that advice, maybe you won't, but they have that sense of knowing that you've heard them and that you're actually listening to them to make a better product or service or experience. And then the final fourth sacred tenet is to be honored and respected, right? Doesn't that feel so good when you're in a community and you're being honored for what the gifts that you bring in to the space? We want to create that energy in our own communities, because the truth is it just feels really good to know that people see us, that people can hear us, and that we can be honored for the person that we are without having to change anything about ourselves, which then ultimately again brings it back into the safety space, right? That what is being created here is here. So when I develop out communities, so again, audience, now we know what an audience is, right? Those are front-facing experiences. Facebook business pages, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, if you're on TikTok, YouTube, speaking engagements, podcasting, right? That's all the front-facing social. And then the internal experience just so happens to be sometimes on a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group. And that is what I call our community, right? So that's really the differentiator, and really some of the tenets to make a community really like spark is to have those four sacred elements in there. Now, with that being said, there's oftentimes that question, Renee, you asked it so powerfully. You said, one of the things I heard you say when you were saying, well, how can I, what I was hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say was, how can I, be in essence, like a creator, an illustrator, a an artist, but I also am in the business of blank, right? I'm in the business of whatever else you mentioned, right? So I get that, and it can feel really hard to figure out, like, okay, well, if I'm just getting started, like, how do I make all of this happen? One of the things that I want to really encourage us to really think about is to really look at, when you're developing a community, to imagine if your community was not your widget. So what I'm trying to say there is, what I mean by that is oftentimes we come into business wanting to sell our thing, right? Or be known for our thing. So if someone came to me and they said, okay, Marusha, so I own a coffee company. I'll kind of explain it from that perspective. One of the businesses I own is a coffee company. It's called Perky Perky. It's all about inviting women. I created it as a way to like invite women to step into our power. So when I started to develop out that company, a lot of people came to me like, oh, you're going to be selling coffee? And I was like, that might be what you think I'm going to be doing, maybe it looks that way. But because I had this framework I'm about to share with you, it actually shifted everything for me. And it literally was how I was able to create 1,000 brand new customers on month one, organically, without any paid anything. I'll explain this to you. I listened to an interview between the former CEO of Soulcycle and Tony Robbins. It's actually on Tony Robbins' podcast, so you should take a look at that. Her name is Melanie Whalen. Okay, Melanie Whalen and Tony Robbins. So they had this, it's a two-part podcast. I listened to the first part, and it was maybe like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago at this point. Listened to the podcast, and she said something so powerful that has stuck with me, and I totally believe that has helped me, helped me get to that first 1,000 customers in our business in our first month. Here's what she said. She goes, people come in, they come to me and they think that Soulcycle is a cycling company. How many of us know, well, number one, how many of us know what Soulcycle is? Okay, yeah, the guys probably won't. This is a perfect example, right? Like, it's really geared towards women. So let me explain a little bit about Soulcycle. Soulcycle is, when you look at it on the outside, it is a cycling. It's kind of like like Orange Theory. It's a cycling company, right? They have a whole bunch of bicycles that you can ride and that you can do exercise on. And they started in New York City, and now they actually have over almost 200 studios across North America, right? And they're expanding like crazy. So when people came to Melanie and they said, okay, well, how are you expanding so quickly? She's like, it's because I started to see myself not through the lens of being a cycling company. If I was a cycling company, I would be just like every other cycling company out there. I would be literally just a cycling company. She's like, what I'm actually in the business of, though, is personal transformation. And I literally, I heard that and I was like, wait. I need to hear this again. Let's go through this again. And I want to share with you what I heard in that moment. What I heard and what she really was tapping into was the fact that we are all trying to sell our widgets. And most of us get stuck at selling our widgets. That's what we call I call first degree business, widget sellers. This keeps us kind of the same like everyone else. In my business, it's Perky. I am a coffee distributor. Exactly, Karen. Widget mentality. Exactly. So we're widget sellers in this like level 1 degree, first degree type of a business. We're really just focused on like, hey, how many widgets can I sell today? Okay. A level 2 business. A level 2 business recognizes that, in fact, yeah, we're selling widgets, but there's something that's going to be needing to be developed to be able to sell more widgets, right? So the way in which we develop that in a level 2 type of a business is through understanding that what you're really selling is an experience. We're not in the business of selling widgets. We're in the business of selling experiences. And when we begin to sell an experience and we tap into those sacred 4 that I just shared with you, what is actually possible to sell that widget? See? So she started to really help me, and so many people who ever heard that podcast really start to expand beyond the idea that we can only just sell our widget one thing at a time, or maybe a few at a time in a wholesale package or whatever. It's now instead a conversation about how do we make people feel? What is it that we want to develop so that people are like turning their heads our direction, leaning in and wanting more? That is community. So, we're in that widget mentality. We're widget sellers on level 1, and level 2 is a whole different level of now selling. We're now in the business of selling experiences. So what would it look like in our worlds to now sell experiences instead of a widget? How we did that in Perky specifically was we really leaned into the conversation that we were having with our core demographic that we wanted to sell to. The core demographic in that business were moms who had left their careers to be stay-at-home moms. And they loved and they felt powerful when they were there present with their kids, and that yes, there was a powerful yes, but then there was that part of them that really missed being back in the workplace and giving themselves some time back to themselves. I built that entire company around making this coffee brand a love letter to those moms who needed some time back for themselves. And when I started to lean into that, and that's in essence, that's my story, right? I was reflecting that story back to the women that I was serving. And as I began to do that, more and more women were like, oh my gosh, you're literally speaking exactly what's happening inside me right now. How can I have more of this? How can I be a part of this experience? What can I do to spread the word about this? Because you're changing not just my life, but I want you to change every woman's life that feels exactly the same. And we grew an amazing community of, there was 1,000 customers that first month, but we grew a community of 17,000 women, moms specifically in our community, to have this harder, deeper, more intense conversation within themselves, right? And that 1,000 customers have continued to refer business and more customers to us, whereas until in November of 2019, we were invited to be part of the United Nations Women Entrepreneurs Day, and we were featured as one of 10 women-owned brands to be on the lookout for in 2020. Like, what just happened? Yeah, thank you guys, thank you. But it was one of those things where it was like, literally, had I just stayed at that level of, oh, I'm selling coffee, could I have ever gotten there? The answer is absolutely not, absolutely not. So Renee, when I hear you saying, I want to do art, I want to focus on my art, I want you to think about what the art is doing on the other end, right? And maybe that means bringing in people who can be that reflector to you of what the experience of your art is to them. And then you build a community around that, right? So your community is supporting you to be able to do more of the art, because because of your art, you're supporting an experience for them on the other end. That's yummy, juicy good right there, right? Like, and you can stay as the artist, and you'll want to bring on, and it could also, by the way, it could also be volunteers at the beginning, right? Your supporters can help you develop out your community. It doesn't have to be you trying to like hustle your way in. It's, hey, who likes this experience that we're developing? People are going to start raising their hands to volunteer their time, if you give them opportunity to do that, right? And then it's a matter of like really creating space for them to be able to have voice in how we're developing out that community beyond so that you can be the artist and you can be in your element and you're in your genius in that way. So yay. And I think when we're thinking about when we're looking at like the West Coast swing dance company, we're looking at rockstar marketing and what's being developed out there, really recognizing that, again, if you're even when you're selling something like a B2B tool, Karen, or marketing for businesses, obviously that's also B2B. Think about, again, what is it that they're receiving that feels so yes, and then we build the whole community experience around that. So for example, video marketing is something that's super hot for sure, right? And you're wanting to really look at how you can get more video marketing, like all the cool things that you guys are doing in the video marketing space to them. Again, that's selling the widget, all right? So like if we're thinking about it more from like, what is the experience that they'll have when they get this tool in front of them? How can we then shift that conversation so that now they're thinking about, from their perspective, why it matters to them? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's where it gets juicy. Now let's say I'm one of the automotive agencies or dealerships that you're working with, right? And I'm seeing example after example after example of marketing showing up, the video marketing that you guys are doing, that's really taking this mechanic off, to another level, this mechanic to another level. Now they're like, wait. I want that same upraising for myself. And now when you're developing out your community for that industry or for the industries that you're serving, you can definitely bring in those examples and maybe even bring in like case studies, right? You're bringing those case studies into your community. So you're lifting, you're co-rising your community together, right? Automotive dealership or mechanic, the mechanic A could now not only help someone across the country develop their strategies more powerfully. It's not you anymore, Jennifer. It doesn't have to be you and your team doing all the talking. Like, you're really just building a space for them to also feel safe to ask the questions that feel really hard because they've never had that space to do that before. All right. So
I have a burning question. Sorry.
Go for it.
If Jennifer was really going to do this right, then it wouldn't necessarily be her making videos. It would be her encouraging the people that she works with to make videos, to exchange those videos, to propel them into the cycle upwards, right? Did I get it?
You got it. You got it. Now, at the beginning, sometimes we're doing this thing that I call tilling soil. Let's go back to the gardening metaphor, right? We're planting the seeds. Sometimes our community, well, sometimes all the time, our communities are waiting for us as the visionaries of the communities to show them a little bit about the vision, right? So we have to take the first step. So we're the ones planting the seeds, and in planting the seeds, sometimes you have to till the soil, massage the soil, pour the nice water in. And what that means is sometimes we're the ones doing our videos at the beginning, because no one wants to be the first one to do anything, right? How many of us are, we're likely not, there's only like 1% of the population that likes to be the pioneer, really. And so if not us, then who? So we get to be the pioneers, practice it, but bring our people along, right? Invite them into the case study, do an interview case study with them. Hey, tell me about this. Hey, I actually did one for Susie Carter. Jennifer and I both work with Susie, and Susie and I had a call this last week that I see literally the value of that call was probably worth $500,000 to me, right? She was like, Marusha, would you be open? This is exactly what you guys can do, by the way, in your businesses too. You ask the question, what, after you're doing, let's say, a coaching call, or you had an experience with somebody, and you can tell they've had an amazing experience, you ask them, well, what's the value of this time that we spent together? And for me, that particular call was $500,000 easy, right? So she gave me some homework, and it was, hey, would you be open to going into our group, into our Facebook group, and sharing the value of your time with me today? That would mean a lot to me. You guys can do the same thing, right? You can do those asks. Now, will everyone do it? Maybe not. Some people are nervous, but you can even say, if you're nervous to get on video, would you be open to sharing in like a post, or with an image of yourself with a post, or just the words, whatever works for you. Just take whatever, right? And just have them be inviting themselves to share that value, because y'all, that's screenshotable. You can take a screenshot of that and you can use that in your marketing beyond that moment where they're publicly sharing about you, right? So that's the stuff that you can do, to answer your question, Karen, to really encourage other people to till the soil with you. But at the beginning, sometimes it is us encouraging them to do that. Yeah. So one more thing I want to really address, and then I'll open up to questions, is, Karen, you had a great question regarding how do you control what happens in a room, right? So I want to actually share with you. I totally get that. Let me say to start, there are when you grow, there's different ways of controlling, if you will, what happens in a group when you're first starting versus when you get to 5,000 people versus when you get to 10,000 people versus when you get to 15, right, and above. So know that what I'm about to share with you is really your initial piece of this, but then as you grow, there are other things that you can do in addition to that, right? So my team is actually, I don't know if you can see this, but my team is going to be turning this into a graphic, because I realize this is what I do all the time. So do you see that, y'all? Okay,
Yeah.
so here, okay, cool. And so right here at the base, we have our values, vision, and voice. Then we have experiential value. We'll talk about this in a second. A profit path, offer, build, and activation. Okay. Typically what happens is when I come to somebody, when someone comes to me and says, oh my gosh, how do I build a group? And like, how, like I see all these amazing groups doing all these amazing things and it freaks me out because I want to do it. But you know, like all the questions, like all of it, I call it the exciter moment. Like you're excited about it and you're also freaking terrified about it, right? So that's exciter. And so, but look at that. This is really where we imagine ourselves starting, the build and the activation of a community, right? But you notice that it is at the top of the triangle. We actually, or the pyramid, we have to actually start down here, right? And so when we're developing out a community, and we're really looking at how do you control what's being said in the community, we actually have to really get clear on first, what are we developing? What type of a community are we going to develop? What kind of an experience do we want to have happening in there? What is really important question that most people don't think about asking is, what is the profit path with our community? What do we want this community to do for us, right? And over the 100+ communities I've designed over the last 12 years online that have created 6- and 7-figure revenue streams, I actually took all of last year and totally did a Renee, which is get into my cave and get into my art, right? And I say that with love, Renee, right? Like my art is understanding community and how people work and understanding processes. So I actually nerded out for a whole year to know what makes a community profitable and what doesn't. And what I found is really there's really 5 core profit paths to developing out a community that really turns it into profit, turns it into a 6- or 7-figure revenue stream for a business. So again, we're looking at values as our foundation, our values, our vision and voice as our foundation. Then we're looking at our experiential value, like we talked about, right? Like what are you selling really? And then we look at our profit path. That's our 3rd layer up. And then from there, we're looking at our offer, right? What is the actual offer that really matters to sell to our community? And then we're looking finally at the build and then activation of that build. The build is like setting up the actual community. When we do it from those perspectives, then we have more control, Karen, on how we have certain things happening in the community so that it doesn't get all haywire and out of control. No one is teaching this right now, right? People are teaching you, okay, go in and just create the group and here's how to do all the tactics. And then you find yourself with this group. And then you're like, the heck do I do with the thing? And then you're like, it's out of control. I want to shut it down. This sucks. Oh, I can't hear you, Karen. I can see your lips moving, but I think you're on mute.
You can't shut it down necessarily either, right? Because this is part of your tribe, right? They're just doing something different than you intended.
Yes, right. So why not?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. I've created a monster, totally.
Yeah. Oh, look at that! Look at that baby. I thought it was going to be cute, and it's kind of monstrous. What's up? You know, like we want to have a little bit more control about it.
They were really adorable as babies, I gotta tell you. But now,
Exactly. So with that being said, that's your phase 1. You know, phase 1 is to really get super intentional about your group. And then the nice thing with having like a Facebook group and LinkedIn groups and honestly other platforms to have this, you have the ability to approve certain people to post. You can utilize your group rules. You can utilize the and within the group settings. So when you're developing out your group, you can actually choose whether you approve everybody before they actually post anything, right? So you can have a lot of control, or you can have like laissez-faire, no control at all, right? And again, it will depend on your group, and it depends on what you're saying, and it also depends on how well the culture is already designed in there, so that your community is self-policing the group in a way so that they're helping the moderators and the admins really develop out that experience that you're envisioning to have, right? So so that's a big part of it. When you get to 5,000, it can feel like what just happened, because now there's so many more people, and I want to address that, because it just actually happened to one of my clients this week. They've been following, they're in module 4 of my program called the Collaborative. It's a 12 module experience with group coaching. They're in module 4. They went from having 100 people wanting to join their group per week to 100 per day. And they're like, what do we do? Right. So with that, right, like we got to pay attention to that. Like, what do you do? Well, number one, the first and foremost thing is, again, putting those things in place. If it feels hairy and out of control, you can always hone it in, and you can, yeah, you can hone it in so that you have a little bit more control of like in the approval process in the moment to be able to figure out like what your next step is. So that's like a little safety net if it all of a sudden like blows up, right? But then next, you also want to really be thinking about like who's going to be there to support you in this development of this community. A community is never built with one person. Whether people think about that it might be or not, it's just not. It's just not. You need each other. I mean, that's the whole point of community, right? We all need each other. So the first phase typically for my clients where this happens is to invite moderators from the community. So people who have already been super invested and engaged in the community, how can we get them involved? You know, what are ways to develop a relationship with them in such a way that they're like, yeah, I want to help moderate, you know, because a lot of times they do in exchange for maybe being seen even more in the community. Sometimes that's a motivation. There's so many different motivations, but the you know, and I mean, I literally could talk about this one part for like hours, right? So like, but the point is here that truthfully, you'll find moderators that are going to raise their hand and want to be of help, even if it's a couple hours a day. That's better than nothing. And then obviously, you know, potentially getting hiring somebody to support the development, so you can come into that community being that visionary, developing out the experience that you want, and having other team members jump on board, whether it's interns or we're actually developing in my company, we're actually developing what I call activators in training, which are in essence my whole goal of a community activator is that they become the Avengers of the community world, right? Like we become we're starting this whole industry right now, yeah. And our goal is to really like make sure that communities feel held and seen and supported. And they're all a whole bunch. We're right now in the middle of training like 6 people right now. And the reason is because we know that people are going to want somebody right there with them to like cheer this community on into its next level. And if we're doing community right, you're becoming very profitable more sooner than later, and you want to have somebody in there to help you continue to create that profitability and that structure that you've been designing in that community to move forward and onward. So those are some things that yeah, some fun things that I'm playing with right now. But as it relates to your question, you know, of how do you manage it, it's really having the right tools and the right people in place to make that happen.
Oh my gosh, there's so many great takeaways, guys. Was this awesome? Because seriously, like, oh, like I think Marusha, you touched on something. You can't do it yourself, and I think part of the reason why some of my stuff has just kind of, you know, like I started, and it just kind of, because it does take it takes the hive mind, right? And it's
Yes.
oh man, these four elements of a community, helping people feel seen, allowing them to feel safe to be themselves, helping them feel heard, be honored and respected. Yeah, I can see why. I can see all the things that we're doing right, and I can also see the areas that
Not.
I have not done everything so right. So I am so glad that I signed up to be with your collective. Did I say that right?
The collaborative.
Yeah, because it's just exciting. So I can't wait to see what we do. And then also too, you're right. It does help to have a team that can help you grow it out. So
Yeah.
we're almost at the top of the hour. How do we get a hold of the fabulous Marusha Murphy? Please share with us how anybody watching this can talk with you more about what you're doing, how they can build community around their business, and start making that phone ring.
Yes, let's do it. I mean, that's my passion. That is number one vision in this world is to see more businesses create more impact for good. I believe in two things: heartbeats and humanity. Like, that is what I stand for. And that's why I have this conversation about community. And we'll speak for hours on this if I need to. So the way in which, there's 3 ways to reach me. Number one is by email. So let me give you my email, and it's my first name, Marusha, which I know is hard. So it's Maruxa at createcellimpact.com. That's where you can directly reach me if that's something that you're really interested in, like moving on. Let's have that conversation. The second way is through understanding which profit path is the right one for you. You know, I talked about those 5 profit paths. I just kind of glazed over it. But if you're interested in understanding, okay, well, yeah, I'm interested in a community, but like, what would the profit path be for me in my own business? Well, we created a quiz to help you figure that out and to discern that in the next, like, within a minute of time. So to get there, it's createcellimpact.com/quiz. Simply /quiz. And if you're interested in having a consistent conversation with me in our own Facebook group called Grow and Monetize Your Groups, then let's do that, right? I'd love for you to be there. And it's Grow and Monetize Your Group. You can find us on Facebook, and you'll see my silly face on the header, so you'll know that that's the group for you. And yeah, I look forward to getting to have you guys there as well.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy we had you come back, and I hit the record button. Yay! Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You know, you bring this level of energy that just is so much fun, and you did it with 0 PowerPoints. That was so cute. I loved it how you held up your little hand drawn graph, because you know what, sometimes ideas are flowing and we just don't have time to put it in a formal presentation. And quite frankly, I love doing things on the fly anyway. That's part of the community thing, right? None of us are smart as all of us, right?
Yeah.
And to you guys who showed up today, thank you so much, Karen. You know I love you, and Chris and Renee, of course. It's always fun to be surrounded by people who help us stand on our tippy toes and want to expand past our comfort zones, right?
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you, and we will be sharing this video soon. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you, Marusha.
My pleasure.